1460 WVOX.
Now, live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, the Greenburgh Report, with Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now on 1460 WVOX, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor. And today we have a really interesting program. Instead of talking about politics, instead of making you aggravated about the news and about the future of our planet, we're going to be talking to a comedian. And Tim Deery is a resident of Dobbs Ferry. He's been a library assistant at the library, works with the county, and he's going to be participating in a stand-up comedy showcase tomorrow, July 15th at the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront Park, and the cost is free. So if you want to laugh and if you want to have a great time at a beautiful park, the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront Park is probably one of the most picturesque parks in the whole region. Why not stop by and listen to the comedy show? It's 8 p.m. tomorrow, Saturday, July 15th. So with us today is Tim Deery, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you, Paul. And that was a great plug. I hope maybe you can plug my other shows. That was a very good job. It is a beautiful waterfront park. My name's Tim Deery. I've been working for the Dobbs Ferry Public Library for the past 8.5 years. So I started doing some wacky programming there after a couple of years in. Started running some called Cult Classic Movie Nights and showing different kind of films that are off the cuff and not, off the beaten path rather. So I was doing that, and that became fairly successful. And then I always have been into comedy, and I was doing sketch comedy for a while. And we have this great room there, our community room, and we have some, decent lighting there. And so I kind of just got the thought, well, why don't we try to do a stand-up show here? Because I'd love to do that. And libraries nowadays, you really have to think outside the box sometimes.
The library is more of a community center now rather than just a place where people would get books.
Exactly. And you could still do that there too, which is important. Books are still very important, but obviously they come in all different kinds of formats now. But certainly it's a community space, I think, first and foremost, in a lot of ways. To
be a comedian, do you have to take a comedy classes? Do you have to have a PhD in comedy?
I mean, there's no specific blueprint for it. I think everybody kind of comes about it in their own way. I think certainly you have to fail a lot. That is probably the number one thing I would say. You have to go up and eat it, as they say, so it's, and go to a lot of open mics and listen to some horrible comedy as well. It's just kind of earning your keep, so to speak.
So, how did you prepare? So you just was always funny?
Instantaneously. Actually, when I first was about to come out, the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck. So my very first words were, so I was already joking around there. But it's, I grew up the youngest of 4 kids in a family of 6, loud Irish Catholic family, loud. And so it was, I had to work a way over that din at the dinner table. And the way I did it was to try and be funny, because I found, I'm getting a response this way from my older brother and older sisters. Even my dad. Making my dad laugh was a big thing. So
right, and it's disarming also.
Yeah.
To be a comedian. I was wondering, because sometimes if I go to a comedy show, I'm always nervous that they'll call on me. and I was going to ask, what could somebody in the audience like me do if you go to a comedy show and you don't want to be called?
Oh, if you don't want to be called?
I always like sit in the way back.
Sit in the back, I would say.
And do you like when you're calling somebody? Do you like look at their eye contact? Like if I don't want to be called and I'm like looking down, does that discourage you from calling?
No, that might make me want to call on you more.
Oh, really?
What's this guy got to hide over there?
Oh, okay. So that's a good lesson. I'll have to practice. We have to take a break, and I'm Paul Feiner, and our guest is Tim Deery, who's a stand-up comedian, and he's going to be at the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront Park tomorrow, Saturday, July 15th at 8 p.m. And listen to comedy at the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront Park. And it's really great that the Dobbs Ferry Library is doing more than just telling you to read a book. They're actually making you laugh even if you don't read a book. So I'll be back. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and my guest is a local comedian, Tim Deery, who's going to be at the Dobbs Ferry Library's Waterfront Park showcase tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And you have a lot of different gigs coming up, right?
I run 2 open mics a month for the library. One of them's a virtual one, which kind of, because of COVID, started happening. And I've kept that one around because it's given me a wider breadth for more comedians, like a pool, so to speak, because I build these showcases through the open mics that I run. But I've also gone back to doing a live mic, and I actually do that at Davino's in Hastings through the library. So we're outreaching in the community, working with local businesses and such as well. And it's good for them; they do good business on it, and it's good for us, and it's great community relations building. So I do those 2 every month, and then I do about 3 to 4, maybe even 5 showcases this year. We'll see. And then I'm also doing a couple other shows here and there throughout like Westchester County coming up. So
when you prepare for these shows, what type of audience do you get usually?
We were starting, when I first started doing them in 2018, we were getting sort of an older crowd. This library, I mean, the bread and butter of some libraries tends to be senior citizens and kids. It's tough to get teens who are, and younger people that have their face in their phones all day to get excited about going to a library when they don't think about all the possibilities, maybe. That was a challenge at first, but we've been getting a lot more of a younger turnout now as well. So it's a good mix that it's
like a word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
And, what type of comedy do you focus on? Do you talk about the news? Do you talk about just basic things? And are there subjects that you won't focus on?
I'm not like a huge political comic, but I wouldn't shy away from it if push came to shove. But ultimately, I like telling stories and the things that are relatable to everybody. So I definitely talk about growing up and family, that kind of stuff.
So if you're like say at the waterfront tomorrow, and let's say it's like really hot out, would you be focusing on the weather?
Yeah, a few weeks ago I was talking about the smog, how, now it's, we're told go inside, instead of staying outside, whereas, a couple of years ago it was go outside, don't stay inside with COVID.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, so you're switching back and forth now.
How do you prepare your material?
I rehearse a lot on like the porch at home. I find a little quiet place, or on a lunch break, I'll go to like a defunct building that I could find like a loading dock to just prepare on. I mean, it's funny, you're performing for rodents sometimes. Me and my friend Jesse, who co-hosts the Davino's mic with me, we were headed to an open mic in Brooklyn, and she got 2 flat tires. So we were like, well, we're stuck here in the Bronx anyway, on Mosholu Parkway. Let's perform for the rodents and the homeless guy over here.
Oh, wow.
So, you make the best of it sometimes.
So do you get your idea sometimes, like if you're just driving and there could be just something like out of the ordinary, you just think of the ideas in the shower?
Yeah, 100%. And driving's fun. I like kind of performing it while I'm driving. I mean, obviously, you might look like a nut talking to yourself, but people sing in the car. They pick their nose in the car.
And also that's right. And also with the phones, people are always talking, so it doesn't sound like it's not as embarrassing.
Exactly. You could be in the supermarket, and it's like, I thought you were talking to me, but
yeah.
And the good thing about driving too is you're already focused on not getting in an accident, so it almost like opens your brain up to start, thinking about ideas you might not have thought of, because you're not so focused on, I have to be funny right in front of these people right now. So it's a good way to open up your mind to see a joke from a different angle.
If you make a joke and people are now laughing, how do you handle that? Like, what is there a recommendation for comedians? How?
Sometimes you might just bomb. It depends on the audience. Like if you just tell like the audience, like you could try to do some crowd work as an alternative. Just scrap the whole routine and let me just focus on the environment we're in. At least that, like, if what I'm saying in my set is not relatable, at least what I can talk about in the room is relatable for sure, because we're all in the same room right now and we're all seeing the same thing. So right.
And so for the Dobbs Ferry waterfront, what type of themes do you think you'll have?
Well, I've talked about just the water in general. The first time I did a show down there, I believe this is going to be my 5th or 6th one down at the waterfront park. So the first time I just sang "Take Me to the River" to open and it got the people. When I first start the show, I want to get the crowd warmed up. I actually had to literally warm them up. We did a show out there last October, and that was cutting it close, and it was a really cold Saturday. So we had a lighter turnout for that one. It was like 40 people, but they came out with comforters on, and I was like, well, I'm going to go up on stage in a short sleeve shirt, because if I'm going to make these people sit out here with a comforter, like, I'm going to take the brunt of this. So
oh, wow.
I feel like you got to lead in that way. Like, all right, you're going to be cold, so am I.
When you were in school, did you also want to be a comedian? Like, did the teachers think were you making a lot of pranks?
Yeah. I remember jumping out the window in 9th grade in biology class with some of my friends, and then walking back in the door, and the teacher's like looks at us like, "Wait, when did you leave the room?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, we were on the 2nd floor, so, and we were in 9th grade, so there wasn't risk of too much injury.
So you always were like the prankster in school?
A little bit. I mean, I got pretty good grades, but I had that little side to me, yeah. I remember standing on the table, dancing and singing in earth science.
So when you tell people what work you do, what's the reactions that people have?
That's cool. Because I mostly am focused on the program. I love doing this. This is where my heart's at, is running these shows and performing.
I'm sort of wondering what makes you laugh.
What makes me laugh? Oh,
yeah.
Man. I mean, I could go through some of my favorite comedians. I like things that naturally happen that you wouldn't expect. Like probably stupid memes are funny. I get all that too. But I don't know why I'm thinking of this. There's this reporter with the bug in the mouth bit. Have you seen that video? It's from a long time ago, but I remember rewatching that. I'm talking about keeling over laughing type, But some of my favorite current comic is Bill Burr. He's had me rolling quite a few times.
So who's your favorite comedians?
My favorite comedian of all time is George Carlin, for sure.
Yeah, I thought he was great.
Yeah. I grew up on him. Bill Burr. Chappelle is great, too. I mean, there's so many. There's just I always enjoyed the roasts too. The Comedy Central roasts are fun, and for my 40th birthday, I did a B-Day roast for my. I threw a B-Day roast for myself, and my friends came and roasted me. So
that's good.
Yeah, I think you have to have that. You have to be able to take it too. You don't want to just be able to dish it out.
Do you go to like a lot of comedy shows yourself?
Yeah, I mean, especially open mics locally, and we're trying to build the scene in Westchester because it's tough going to the city for an open mic where you might have to put your name in a bucket. It may not even get called, and you went all the way to the city, spent all this money, and now my name didn't even get picked out of the bucket, and I got to go home. So it's nice to have a lot of local Westchester spots starting to do it.
Right, so that's interesting. So it's I guess it's really competitive, the whole field.
Sure, very competitive. Mm-hmm.
And do you feel that would your goal in life be, to eventually just be a full-time comedian, or could you make a living on just being a comedian?
If you can get to that pinnacle, then you can do it. But hopefully, that would be the goal at the end of the road for sure. And I'd love to. Performer probably first and foremost. Like I kind of almost say performer more than just comic because I started out doing sketch comedy and I love playing characters and that. The road to stand up was really because it's like you just have to rely on yourself to show up. Where you get in these sketch comedy troupes and you're working with other people and sometimes, oh, well, why don't you come to Brooklyn today? And the next day and the next day and the next day. And it's like, well, are you ever going to come up here? So you wind up having to work with a lot of personalities and the stand-up is more, okay, I can show up. I know I'm going to show up. I know I'll be here. It's like the drummer never shows up at band practice, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So,
I'm wondering when you're in front of an audience, how do you sort of practice your material? And when you're practicing, do you sort of have to anticipate the crowd before you're practicing?
Yeah, definitely about pausing. And that's something I'm still working on, when to let it breathe, and I think that's a big trick, a big step for like a starting comedian is letting it breathe.
Right. We have to take another break, and we'll
Speaking
be back in a couple minutes. I'm Paul Feiner with Tim Deery, and we're speaking about stand-up comedy, and he's having a stand-up comedy show showcase tomorrow, July 15th at the Dobbs Ferry Library.
1460 WVOX.
Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and we're talking with a budding comedian, Tim Deery, and he is going to be featured at the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront Park tomorrow at 8 p.m. They're having a waterfront comedy showcase, and in the event of rain, it will be at the library.
Right, yeah. We asked that people sign up just so we have an email contact in case I need to email about changing the location. So if you, the email is dobref, DOBREF, at WLSmail.org. So that's our Dobbs reference desk. This way I can, if it's looking like a thunderstorm at that time, I think we'll be okay though. I think it looks okay at the moment.
When you have the open mic nights, where do you do that?
Yeah, so one of them's virtual, and people can contact me to be a part of that. That's the first Tuesday of the month. It's Deery, TDEERY at WLSmail.org. That is this is the first Tuesday a month. They do it on Zoom, and the second Tuesday a month is live. And those have been going very successful at Davino's in Hastings on Hudson. So
That's great. Where's Divino? Cucina's restaurant?
yeah, it's Davino's. It's actually in the Speakeasy. They have a Speakeasy underneath the restaurant. By the way, a good spot to bring a date. It's kind of cool. You go in the side door and and then you go down the stairs. You just got to watch your head because I think I've smacked it like every single time I've gotten in there.
Oh, wow.
Because it's in a basement. So, but it's really nice down there. And thanks to them for having it. And my co-host is Jesse Murphy, and we've been doing that together since November. So, but yeah, I want to give props to Paul here, who was just telling me he did the New York City Marathon. So I'm a runner as well, and I want to thank you for all you've done for Westchester, for all the different trails. You've literally trailblazed.
Definitely.
So I really appreciate that as a runner, and I've used quite a few of them. And Paul was just telling me that he did the New York City Marathon without even practicing, which I find insane.
No, actually, I was. My brother-in-law's a big runner. And my niece was like a New York Road Runner of the Year. She was.
Oh, wow.
She was actually almost made the Olympic tryouts.
Wow.
And really a good runner. And then I said, I'd love to run. So I was doing like 3 miles, 5 miles a day, like on the treadmill.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, I'm going to run.
But that's 26.2 miles.
Yeah, and I did it in just. Like I think the New York Times, they used to print like anyone who did it in 5 hours or less. So my goal was to be, in that they have thousands of runners.
Yeah.
So I ran, and then like 1 second before I got to Central Park, I tripped.
No.
And I fell, but I made it. I was like the last 30 or 40 people to make the 5 hour.
Oh, good. You still made it.
I still made it.
Oh, that's good.
And then I couldn't walk for like a week because I didn't realize when you run 26 miles, it's tough.
Yeah. Have you tried these ice bath? This is the new thing, right?
No, I haven't done that.
No. I've been kind of doing it. I don't have any official setup yet, but I have these big coal packs. I'll throw them in the tub, and man, as they say, time goes fast, but if you sit in that ice tub, time does not go fast anymore. Time goes slow. I timed it. I was like, okay. I think I could do like five more minutes. And then so I set the timer on my phone, and I'm just like, okay, the thing should be dinging now. And it's like, I look at it, it's 2 minutes in. So that was an interesting. Time changes when you're in that ice bath.
That's great. Do you have knee issues?
Yeah, I've actually had a meniscus surgery, my left knee, but a lot of it's, rolling and stretching, and the ice recovery for me has been crucial. So, When
you're running, do you get ideas for your comedy shows?
Yes. So, I've even started doing, I'll rehearse the whole show while I'm running. So it's, again, that same thing I was talking about, like when you're driving the car, you'll think of different angles from the joke. I think it's important to do the performances in different settings, different venues, and that's what's good about going these different open mics. I was just at one last night in Sing Sing Brewery in Ossining, and there was one, Jack Ludlam hosts, a friend of mine. He's one of the comics I had on my last show. And he hosted in Brewster every Monday. And then there's another one tonight at the Idea Kitchen in Larchmont. So all these different great local mics to go to. And that's Eliana Johnson hosts that one. So just trying to give everybody their props. And most of these people I've met through, all of these people really, I've met through local open mics, and almost all of them through mine. So, and if anybody has any spot they want put me on, let me know. Just give me a shout at that email I mentioned earlier, tdeary@wlsmail.org. Quick plug.
It's interesting because I was thinking that each of the river villages are sort of like different and have different characters. Mm-hmm. And have you noticed when you're, say, performing, say, in Dobbs Ferry, you may get one type of audience. In Larchmont, it could be even though it's Westchester County, it could be like totally different.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And how do you deal with different types of crowds? You know, you could, like if you're before like a more older crowd or a more, athletic crowd, are there different types of jokes?
Yeah, the older crowd definitely does not like the dirtier humor,
Right.
for sure. So, like, if you get a younger crowd, you could be a little more boisterous. But that makes sense, I think, it's just a generational thing. So part of it is knowing your audience and also being prepared to change things up on the fly. Or, like, anything can happen during the middle of your set. Now, for instance, at this waterfront park, I'll tell you right off the bat, the train comes in every 20 minutes, so it's loud, and people will make jokes, I've heard a lot of funny jokes about that as it, comes in and out. People are like, if their set's going bad or something, like, I'm about to go catch that train, or,
oh, wow.
and I've had people, there's a path behind the stage there. I've had people walking their dogs. I'm like, what the, so it's like, yeah, I won't go with there, but, so it's different. You got to just work with what you got, kind of, and know how to work around it.
I know in politics sometimes, like if people like me, then everything I say is funny. And if they don't like you, you could say the exact same thing.
Oh, gosh.
And they think, is it sort of the same type of thing that you could reach sort of a crowd, and if the crowd doesn't want to be receptive, the whole show could bomb or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I in my shows, I wouldn't say I've ever bombed, because part of being the host, you almost have to be affable to as many people as possible. So during my set, because I do a set as well, I open it up first, and that's when I try to be the most general, something I feel like everybody can relate to. And then during my set, I might want to talk about something more introspective or something from my life more. And that's almost like, that's my time, I mean, obviously it's everybody else's time too, and I don't want to waste it. That's paramount, the audience comes first really, but I want to engage with them in a way that I can also feel like I got something out of it too.
So if you have an open mic show in December, will you talk about global warming if it's freezing?
I mean, I talk about anything. Yeah, I mean, anything's on the table for me. I mean, that's the great thing about comedy and freedom of speech. And actually, I love how the slogan here for 1460 AM is the voice of the people. I look about the working at the library. I look at the library as the voice of the people, and that's why I love the fact that this comedy is intertwined with the library, because comedy to me is also the voice of the people. So all of these things kind of come together and blend pretty well.
So as a somebody who works in the library, do you make people laugh inside the library when you're not on as a comedian?
I try to, if they're not grumpy. You know who I'm talking about if you're out there listening. I do. I always had a good rapport with the patrons. Always, I always enjoy seeing them. And I love helping people, It's part of being in the library is helping people out, The patron comes first, just like the audience does.
If you're when people are comedians, you always have to be on. And how do you act?
You would think.
How would you act if you're like in a bad mood that day?
I'll just be in a bad mood. Leave me alone. I think people know, but I probably wear it on my face. It's, I think people know that, that you're a person too, but you do start tending to think in bits. Like I heard Jerry Seinfeld talking about this, you're always thinking in bits, and it's not like an offensive thing. It's just, right. I think he said his wife turned to him and was like, "You're thinking about a bit right now, aren't you?" He's like, "Yeah, but I'm always thinking about a bit." So it's just how our brains are kind of wired.
We have to take one more break. I'm Paul Feiner, and I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and we're talking with Tim Deery, and we're going to be, they're having a showcase tomorrow, July 15th at the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront Park at 8 p.m. and the cost is free, and it's a way to have a lot of fun. and enjoy a beautiful park and laugh.
WVOX.
Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor. My guest is Tim Deery, and Tim is a stand-up comedian and also works with the Dobbs Ferry Library. And Dobbs Ferry Library, which is known for their books, and they're also known for their beautiful views. It's one of the nicest little libraries around. They're having a stand-up comedy showcase tomorrow at the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront Park from July 15th at 8 p.m. I was going to ask you, what's the best audience you've ever had?
It's the last two showcases I ran. Those have been the best two that I've done. So this one's going to be my 11th showcase for the library. The last two, I did one in March and then one in May. Did those inside the library in our community room. And it was just, these shows are getting better and better, which is good. You don't want to be going south, you want to be going north with these. So the difference with that is that the laughter gets to stay in the room, right? Instead of doing it outside is definitely a different animal because there's no room for the laughter to stay in. So as a performer, it's a little more challenging. You could be doing a set and being like, am I just bombing or like people, so it's different doing it outside.
And also, I guess, when you're outside the Dobbs Ferry waterfront, people may sit in for like 15 minutes and then take a walk on the waterfront.
Yeah.
So is it sort of hard? Is it sort of, that must be much harder because you really have a much, that park is acres and acres. So it won't look crowded. Are you better? Do you enjoy it more when it's a smaller room and everybody's confined? And
I think there's good sides to both. I guess ideally there would be a smaller room with low ceilings so that you can hear that laughter. But I do from like womb to tomb, if you will, with these shows. I'm doing everything. So half the time I'm filling the garbage pails bags in, so I'm doing the advertising, I'm making the flyers. So I do a ton of advertising for these. And we do tend to get like a core audience that's sitting there at these, even at the waterfront park. So like in terms of people coming in and out of the park, that is going to happen, but that's kind of on the periphery. And the main audience is still there. So that's never really been an issue, thankfully.
So if somebody is like going to the waterfront park and they get there a little late, or if they walk out early, will you sort of like put them on the spot if somebody
I've done that with comics that come late to my open mics, or I actually did do it at the last show. There was someone who came in late. I was like, "You're late," I had a Tinder date come to one show. I was like, "Are you?" We matched on there, and she was like, she's like, "What are you up to tonight?" I was like, "I'm hosting a comedy showcase." And she's like, "That's cool. Can I come?" And I was like, "Really? This is the first date you want?" I was like, "Why not?" And that's the number one rule of comedy, right? Always say yes. So that was the best advice I ever heard, was always say yes in comedy. And you'll notice this too if you ever watch anything like the late night hosts. If the guest says something that's a little out there or wild, if they're just to poo-poo it and say no, it kind of kills the momentum of the interview. So, like, the more you just go with it, right?
Have you ever used artificial intelligence?
Oh, me? No, I have not.
Yeah, and would you ever consider using chat?
Yes, because I just said the number one rule of comedy is yes. So if I said no now, I'd be a liar,
Yeah. That could sort of change everything. I'm sort of wondering, were you ever like a best man at somebody's wedding, or have you had that situation? How do you deal with somebody when you're making a speech about somebody that you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my brother got married, and a big thing in my family was giving noogies. My dad was always giving everybody a noogie. So, I went up and I said, I'm very upset with my brother. He got to give my dad the first noogie of the new millennium. He made it a point right when it turned 2000 to go over to my dad. And I was a little jealous. However, I get to give Terrence his first noogie as a married man. And then I went over to him and went, ah! So the whole crowd got into that,
Right. I also wanted to know of all the jokes that you've heard, do you have like a favorite joke?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Shoot. My favorite joke of all time. Oh gosh. I mean, the George Carlin, the football and baseball one is up there. You know how he compares the two? How football's on a diamond, I'm sorry, football's on a gridiron. Baseball's on a diamond. Like in football, the goal is to get to the end zone. In baseball, the goal is to go home. Go home. You're free at home. Safe at home. Safe at home. That's it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic bit. And then, I don't know why, for some reason, I'm thinking of the Patton Oswalt bit where he talks about Stelladoro breakfast treats commercial and just the cantankerous couple in there, and what a way to sell a breakfast cookie.
Have you ever done like stand-up comedy, and the people you've, who have been listening have been drunk, and how do you handle that? You try to go with the yes. I've lucked out so far and haven't had anybody that I've had to throw out, but I'm sure that's going to happen at some point. I guess I would just, I don't really have I'm the security, right? I don't really have security there, so I'm hoping it's really just the voice of reason of the crowd that can help out in that situation. If it was a bigger event that I had, the availability and finances to get security for, that would help. But just in terms of dealing with them, you just got to just go with it and try to make fun of them, I guess. Use it like a roast. That's absolutely, correct. Do you think for tomorrow's show, will there be any politics involved in that?
Let me see. Knowing my lineup, not really. I don't. None of us are really political comedians. And again, I'm not against it. But I'm not against it. But tomorrow night, I would say generally not.
I guess what about religion? Do you ever talk about religion?
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I grew up Irish Catholic, so yeah. I talk. My father was going to be a priest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was in the seminary in Yonkers for 2 years, and then he got kicked out for getting in a fight over a crumb cake.
Oh, and then what did he do?
Then he got his master's in NYU business, and then he got drafted to Vietnam. So he went from, I'm going to be a priest, to like in Vietnam. Pretty drastic difference. Yeah, he had a pretty wild, amazing life. So.
And did he... Did the Vietnam experience have an impact when, I guess it's only recent that people really are appreciating the service of Vietnam.
Yeah, I remember him talking about, coming back and people kind of looking down upon, people that service people that had gone out to Vietnam. Like, instead of, now it's a little more celebrated. Still they need to work on the benefits and whatnot, right? But those always seem to be a little lackluster. But I remember him mentioning quite a bit about back then, you were almost looked down upon for having, been drafted,
Right. So we only have about 2 minutes left, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts that you'd like to highlight.
As far as the show, I think this is going to, honestly, I keep feeling like this with every single show, but I truly think this is going to be the best show yet, just because the talent level on here is tremendous. David Beckles Jr. and as well as Alex Kolar have been the headliners on my previous two shows. So, and then Matt Lopes is going to be headlining this one. So Matt Lopes is from Connecticut. He's hilarious. The first time I ever saw this guy, I was rolling. So, and then Mike Noble, Shauna Lane, and myself. Shauna's great. She's come to my open mics. She's performed in the city. And Mike Noble, I met him. He came to my very first open mic, and we're not only is he very funny, but we're very good friends. And me and him, the first time he came, it was my very first open mic, and he's like, "You want to grab a beer afterwards?" So we went up to the Celtic Corner at the time, which is no longer in Dobbs Ferry, but we sat there having a beer, and we started talking about our dads. And funny enough, his dad and my dad had a lot of similarities, and it was just a great bonding experience. And so I've formed friendships with this, and so this show is coming from the heart, and it's going to be hilarious, and y'all should check it out.
And is it hard to select the lineup for shows? You know, how do you choose who's going to be part of a show?
Yeah, I mean, I want to show, first and foremost, it's got to be a funny show. You know, that's what I want to put on a good show. That's first and foremost. Second, you know, there's loyalty to the open mic programs that I run. I want to give people I also want to give people a chance. So I've had this is my 11th showcase. I've had 35 different comics throughout the 11 showcases. Some of them had never done a showcase before. Some of them never even knew they were going to do it, and they were so appreciative. It's been all love, and it's been such a positive thing for me, the community, and you know, not tooting my own horn, but just like from what the feedback I get from people, just in honesty. So, and then some of these people, I promise you, are going to be on to bigger and better things. I'm sure that you're going to see some Netflix specials from some of these folks.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So have you ever been on TV?
Yeah, I was in a movie. I'm SAG eligible, but I guess they're on strike right now, right?
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and I've been in a music video. I was on Romper Room. I was on that TV show when I was a child.
Oh, wow.
So I've been on TV. I used to work at RNN TV in Rybrook.
Oh, great.
So I helped them. I think it was one of their highest viewed YouTubes was that we went to Sullivan County Prison and did a program, like a Scared Straight type program.
Oh,
there.
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and thank you, Tim Deery, for joining us. And
thank you for having me.
Hope people will laugh a little bit more. So
Yes.
thank you, and I think if you're in the mood of laughing, stop by tomorrow at Dobbs Ferry Library Showcase at the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront at 8 p.m. And if you can't make it tomorrow, go to Tim's Showcases.
And thank you so much, Paul, for having me.
Thank you.